Question 5 says there's 10 men and 7 women in a particular math club, and the club is selecting their mathlete team for a competition. They need 6 people on the team total. In how many ways can they select their team if, and we're given some different options. So the first one says they need 4 women and 2 men on the team. Notice that would make the total of the 6 people for the team. Well, let's think about it. If we're making a team, again, really that means that we've got groups of people. So we're going to have to take advantage of combinations in this problem. But does everyone come from one group, or do they come from different groups? And we can see that they come from different groups. We're going to have to pick 4 women, and we're going to have to pick 2 men. So let's think about the women. So we need a group of 4 of them. How many do we have to pick from? Well, there's 7 possible, so we need 4 women from 7. And for the men, we need 2 men from 10. So each of these needs to be counted as a group. We need a group of 4 women from 7, so that's a combination from 7 people. Choose 4. And for the men, it's also a group, so a combination from 10 people. Choose 2. And then notice these are 2 separate events that we've broken the problem down into, so then we'll combine those with sequential counting. So then sequential counting says multiply those 2 numbers together. So let's look for what those 2 numbers are. I'll do some side work over here. So let's say combinations of 7 picking 4. Well, that's going to be 7 factorial over 4 factorial, and then 7 minus 4 is 3 factorial. So then we'll have 7 times 6 times 5 times, we can stop at 4 and put a factorial on it. And then we've got 4 factorial, 3 factorial. And that 4 factorials are going to cancel out. So we're left with 7 times 6 times 5 over 3 factorial, which is 3 times 2 times 1. Remember that little trick to see if you simplified correctly, because I have the same number of numbers on the top and the bottom. There's 3 different numbers on top and bottom. So let's multiply them out. 7 times 6 times 5 is 210. 3 times 2 times 1 is 6. So we need to do 210 divided by 6, which is 35. So when I put these back together, we're going to have 35 times whatever my other combination turns out to be. So my other combination, we've got combinations of 10, choose 2. So that's 10 factorial over 2 factorial, 10 minus 2 factorial, which 10 minus 2 is 8. So this is 10 factorial over 2 factorial, 8 factorial. So we're going to start to write out 10 times 9 times 8. Put a factorial on 8 since it's in the bottom. And cancel those 8 factorials, so we're left with 10 times 9 all over 2 times 1. That's 2 factorial. So 10 times 9 is 90. Over 2 is going to be 45. So 35 ways to pick the women and 45 ways to pick the men. So 35 times 45 is 1,575 ways. Oops, got my numbers mixed up. Let's see, did I do it right? Yeah. Let's look at part B. Part B this time now just changes the numbers from the different groups. It says I want 3 women and 3 men. So still I have to break it down into men and women. But now I need 3 women and 3 men. So for the women, I'm still picking from 7 people, and I need 3 this time instead of 4. And then for the men, I still am picking from 10 people. And then we're picking 3 as well. And then sequential counting is going to say to multiply those together. So again, let's do those combinations. So 7, picking a group of 3, we're going to have 7 factorial over 3 factorial. 7 minus 3 is 4 factorial. So then we're going to end up with 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 factorial, all over 3 factorial times 4 factorial. Cancel the 4 factorials. 7 times 6 times 5 over 3 times 2 times 1 is that 210 over 6, which is 35. Notice it's actually the same number from up above because the 3 and the 4 added up to 7. So you might have noticed that already when we had this 7 factorial over 3 factorial, 4 factorial. We had already computed that as 35 up above. Now 10 choose 3, so we're going to have 10 factorial over 3 factorial, and then 10 minus 3 is 7 factorial. So that means I've got 10 times 9 times 8 times 7. We'll put a factorial on 7. And then I've got 3 factorial, 7 factorial. Cancel those 7 factorials. We're left with 10 times 9 times 8 over 3 factorial, which is 3 times 2 times 1. So we can do 10 times 9 times 8 is 720. 3 times 2 times 1 is 6. So 720 divided by 6 is 120. So this time we have 35 times 120. Which is 4,200. So different ways of putting the teams together. Now we've got part C. Part C asks, what if there are no restrictions of who is on the team? So, well, what does that mean? Well, in the previous questions, we had particular things that we wanted, right? We wanted a certain number of men and a certain number of women. Now I don't care who I have, who I'm picking from. So if we think about what that looks like then, well, it doesn't really matter who I'm picking from. I'm just picking from the whole group. So pick 6 people from everyone. That whole group. Well, what is the whole group? Well, the whole group is the men combined with the women. We had, let's see up top, we had 10 men and 7 women. So then all in all, I'm going to have 10 plus 7. There's 17 total people. So when there's no restrictions, we're going to look at what's the whole group. And we can pick people from the whole group of 17, and I need to pick the entire team of 6. So then we'll get 17 factorial over 6 factorial. 17 minus 6 is 11 factorial. 17 times 16 times 15 times 14, 13, 12, and then we hit 11, put a factorial on it. And then we'll have 6 factorial, 11 factorial, which the 11 factorials are what cancels. So we're left with 17, 16 times 15 times 14 times 13 times 12 over 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So 17 times 16 times 15 times 14 times 13 times 12 is 8,910,720. And then we've got 6 factorial, 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 is 720. So then that 8,910,720 divided by 720 is 12,376. Just double checking. So with this one, notice I didn't have to split the total club into 2 groups of people and pick from separate groups. We just said, just look at everybody as a whole group and then pick the team of 6 people. So that's why we added the men and the women together to get the total group size, which was 17.